Red 2 standing by, all for lit and in the green. Welcome back to Banjo-Kazooie, and you might have noticed the laughter of the Sir Slush. It can't actually hit us in the level entryway. We'll wind up going to get the... witch switch jiggy for this level, and then we are good to go out to Gobi's Valley. They are surprisingly good at leading their shots. Oh, I just made it. So, we can fly down there, but there's also a hexagon path up here. Lots of pathways appear to be hexagons, which I suppose adds to the honeycomb theme of the level. I don't know if it was sort of a level design limitation or not, but quite a few of them actually appearing to be hexagons to match up with that honeycomb thing. It works really well. It's a very nice aesthetic choice. So we can try and kill the Sir Slush, but I'm not going to waste my time. If we fly through here, we can go and wind up smashing the glass in the eye of this Gruntilda statue. You can use the beak bomb, but you can also, if I'm correct, wind up landing on the nose. You can also jump from the top of the hat. And that makes things a bit easier. Now we can finally go to Gobi's Valley. The desert is a very fitting place for an Australian because a significant chunk of our country is desert, and it's probably getting worse by the day. Ah yes, you can see that we have mums. I'll give you a demonstration. So, they cannot be killed by normal means. Only the Wonder Wing will dispatch them permanently. So we will have to look out for those in various tombs around Gobi's Valley. Okay, there's a quick demonstration. That was a point of pride. But yeah, a significant chunk of Australia is desert. Of course, this isn't a huge problem for Indigenous Australians because they're smart enough to survive. They generally know the desert regions. Those nations which did live in the deserts knew them pretty much inside and out. When you've been there for 65,000 years, you're going to accumulate a fair bit of knowledge. And the way everything was passed down in their songs and tradition, even today you might get people who have never been to a specific location in the desert, and yet because of the stories and songs passed down, they will know exactly where everything is. They can tell you somewhere and they'll be surprised if whatever they're telling you to go to is not there. It's very impressive. Now let's go talk to this tree. Trunker wants rain. I'm shriveling up. How's your nuts, bark breath? Kazooie! Legs and feathers help? No. Need water. Help. Kazooie is just... So here's the question. Aren't Trunker's roots long enough? They're obviously not long... Wait, hang on. Hold the phone. Those roots could be lowered just a little bit and then he'd have all the water he wants. But it appears he drinks water through his mouth. Which is a bit weird, but there you go. Anyway, the deserts of Australia are incredibly harsh and downright inhospitable. They are notoriously difficult to navigate. It's tantamount to suicide to go out there unprepared. And you have to have plenty of equipment. You have to have GPS equipment. You have to make sure people know where you're going. You have to have all sorts of things to be able to deal with the harsh conditions. It's no joke. I mean, there are significant parts of the Australian desert which are not properly mapped. It's just so hard to find your way. It's so inhospitable that it's very difficult to find anything. You just have to look up the legend of Lassiter's Reef. The idea of the massive reef containing plenty of gold, and this is sort of a geological reef. Quartz reef, basically, that Harold Lassiter found. No one has ever been able to find it. It's the stuff of legend. It could exist out there in the desert, but nobody really knows where it is because nobody really knows how to navigate the desert. Only indigenous knowledge is really going to help. There are some things you can do, but overall, it's almost beyond comprehension. It's vast. Fortunately, I can't do anything to his eyes. I probably should go back up here and fly first. Because we can get ourselves a jiggy by flying, and we can return to the fly pad. So, you see those statues? Let's get our Superman on! Yep, we have to fly through rings. Summon all the hidden rings of the ancients to beat the witch. I think depending on which way you actually go through the rings, it will change which one appears next. I'm not 100% sure on it, or maybe it's a random order each time, I don't know. Whoa, oh. But, yeah, I think it can vary a little bit, but it's a pretty cool touch nonetheless. So, once we go through all of these rings, we will see if they're telling the truth or not. Only joking, mortal. We can only give you this. I mean, in fairness, the Jiggy does help us beat Gruntilda, so they're technically not lying. It's just they're just taking their time with it. Okay, I'm trying to make excuses. They kind of are lying. So, oh, nice. So we got that, and now we can wind up doing the thing we actually need to go to Freeze Easy Peak for. This is the only instance of backtracking in the game of needing a certain move from a certain level to do a certain thing. This and Boggy's Race. Beak bomb that target, and down we go. If we land there, we can run in here and wind up meeting a stereotype. Admittedly, Ruby kind of does come across as a bit of an Indian stereotype. Very stereotypical snake charmer. You can see the huge turban. Oh, the camera. I seem to remember getting stitched up by the camera angle in this level. So, if we head over and talk to him. Hello, my friend. I am Ruby. Can I be of some help? We're looking for treasure, pipe boy. Very good. I see some up there. It's yours if you can get it. Yeah, it definitely comes across as a little bit stereotypical. Maybe a lot, depending on some of the things. So, doesn't look typically Indian, but he's got the very oversized hat. It's very clear that given there's the basket here, he is meant to be a snake charmer. There is a Jiggy up there, and we've got no flight pad. So, what do? We have to pay the man in poop. Pretty much, we have to shoot eggs out from behind and get them into that basket. One more. I believe 5 eggs are required. Ah, 1,000 thanks. My friend Histup will now help you with your quest. At least he doesn't lie to us. So, if we stand right... You can actually climb up here stuff. Let me see. Yeah, you can climb up him, which I think you're meant to do. But yeah, it's also easy, probably a bit of a speed running trick to wind up standing on. So, let's go back to the Sphinx area and make our way up again, because we need to open that door in order to chase down some more Jiggies and more notes. That magic carpet I'm not going to worry about just yet on account of the fact we need to do something at its destination later. But yeah, desert levels, generally it's mostly an aesthetic choice because mostly you generally don't have to deal with the incredible temperature fluctuation and things like that. Breath of the Wild is an exception. So, Jinxie the Sphinx has a blocked nose. How exactly does that happen to a gigantic stone statue? But it does bring up something pretty neat, the fact that there were all these magnificent constructions by older civilizations they had pretty good grasps of engineering and the like. Being able to build the pyramids, transport the stones and things like that. It's a pretty impressive feat. So we can go on inside. But you note that when it comes to all those ancient astronauts and things like that, it's only ever like non-European civilizations that are like, well, they must have built this with the help of aliens. No. Even if they didn't necessarily have the modern technology, even if they didn't necessarily have the same equipment, they still had their own ways of doing things, and it was really impressive. They did a heck of a job building everything and getting it all constructed. These massive monuments, essentially tributes to the ego of a ruler, if I'm going to be brutally honest. That's kind of what the pyramids were. But at the same time, they're such fascinating constructions that have stood for so long. They are an absolute marvel. You have to admire the work and dedication that went into them. Can I get there? I might have made it. I've made it. Yeah, you look at things from various civilizations across the world. Places like Machu Picchu, places like Stonehenge, Damascus being one of the oldest continuously inhabited cities in the world. And you do realize that despite all the stereotypes are essentially just a lot of bunk, things weren't as bad and backwards as we would like to think they are. It is actually interesting to note that people in the Middle Ages, which we associate with sort of filthy, unwashed peasants and the like, they actually had a pretty good concept of personal hygiene. And it was especially notable with Jewish populations because of religious requirements, so they were actually less susceptible to disease. It was, interestingly, I wish it would stop doing that. It was actually during the so-called Enlightenment and the Renaissance that people actually seemed to stop bathing quite as frequently. And it actually took quite some time for hygiene standards to wind up getting back to what we would consider normal. And depending on circumstances, it's not necessarily anywhere near what you'd call normal if you've been to... Well, there's a bit of a stereotype of the unwashed nerd, I'll admit. I'm pretty sure there's some truth to it. I've been to at least one particular card shop. Most of the places I've been to, but one place felt like it was embodying every stereotype. It was incredibly stuffy, there was no real air conditioning, and the reek of unwashed nerd will haunt me for the rest of my life. That place was... fetters, to put it lightly. But, fortunately, I don't think a lot of people live down to stereotypes. Like maybe one bad place. And, yeah. And one dead mummified body. It's fascinating just how knowledgeable they were about anatomy and preservation, even if they didn't necessarily have sort of all the info we did. You can sort of consider everything that is brought up in those old civilizations to be sort of a forerunner of knowledge, of our knowledge. Okay, well that was fairly lucky. Sir Isaac Newton said, "If I have seen far, it is because I have stood on the shoulders of giants." Was it up here? Oh well, can't get them all. That's basically it. That the knowledge put together by civilizations before us wound up being a major contribution to everything we know now. No, that was the honeycomb. The Jinjos next to one another. Because it is actually worth noting that despite all the ridiculous theories and the like, people actually knew the world was round long ago, and they were pretty good at doing the mathematics to calculate everything. Oh, I did get it. I mean, they weren't quite right on the circumference, but they got pretty damn close with all that all those mathematics, just by using the length of shadows and things like that, and based sort of what we'd call basic mathematics. It's really, really interesting. I've probably blathered on a little bit, but I suppose it sort of sharing these insights and everything that comes up. I just missed the bus, so to speak. But sharing everything that winds up coming up as a result of these levels, these things that just come to mind now and then. I hope it's fascinating anyway. So we make it out here and we've got a camel. It's too hot for Gobi. I need some shade. Please help me. So, bust the rock, and our titular camel will give us a jiggy. Here's your award, Bear. Gobi's off to cool down. There is a real-life Gobi desert. It is in Mongolia, I think it is. I'm not super hot on my geography, sadly. Okay, so wait for it to reappear. But yeah, there are many different things that will wind up coming to mind as a result of these levels, and I hope that there's some good insight and inspiration shared. Because problem is I get so interested in talking, in sharing these insights, that I tend to forget we should stop and listen to the music sometimes. Because, I mean, this has some really, really good music. No surprise. Now, we're going... Whoa, the camera just janked on me. It was a bit of a problem with Yooka-Laylee, that it tried to capture the spirit of the old 3D platformers. Problem is, it succeeded a little too well, and it didn't quite make its own identity. It certainly captured the camera screw, so... I just keep clipping out of the way of the hitboxes. Only we sand eels can survive in here. So, if we try and charge at Grabber and get his jiggy, we are too slow. Now, if you're a really, really, really skilled player, which I am not, you can snatch that jiggy with a beak bomb. Good luck. So, grab the Mumbo token. Now, I want to avoid that switch, because you need to hit that switch for a timed race up the pyramid, but I'm going to show you what you can do to avoid that. There are plenty of interesting pyramids and designs, not just in Egypt. While we associate pyramids with Egypt, there are plenty in I think there were plenty in Mayan and South American culture too. Somewhat different designs. I think some of them, there are step pyramids and ziggurats and the like. And it really is worth just taking the time to have a look at all the different styles available. So the running shoes we'll need in order to... Now, normally we'd need the running shoes to go up and get... to go up on that, to hit that switch and to get up to the top on time. But even then, it's still pretty tight now.
Oh, I've had that 1,000 years. Well done, mortal.
Oh no, I love how the "oh" for the shoes running out just winds up timing with you getting the jiggy. It's like, oh no, I got a jiggy. No, I'm sad. Let me show you a little trick. Now, if I get this right, we wind up bouncing it in place. But you'll notice that there's a moat down here and it's full of superheated sand. Now if I get this right... Yeah! Easy way! There's also a Mumbo token in here you can only get when the water level is high. So, don't forget it. Now we get to fill that moat up with water by getting this jiggy. But it's a very good shortcut to wind up... the flight pads down there were designed so that if you got stuck you could get back out. But they're also very handy for beating that race with a little bit of time to spare. Because it's a bit tight otherwise. Wait, hang on. Okay, I think I've defeated all of the mums, so I'm not going to be able to do anything more. But it seems as though if I wind up defeating them with the Wonder Wing when they're sort of curled up, I don't get anything from them. That's interesting. I didn't know that. We can swim down here. We will need to go flying again. We can't use these flight pads anymore, but we don't need to. So yeah, while I am trying to be a useful guide, this is it's probably a little bit more entertaining when I start talking about interesting facts and figures and things like that, rather than just me sort of repeating what I'm doing on screen. What do we got? Nope, it's around here. Oh, camera. What am I doing? So, no empty honeycombs yet, but they'll come. They'll come along short. Probably need to make this episode a little shorter. But then again, I'm nearly done with the level. We could probably put it in its own episode. Now we need to feed these eggs, if I get the timing right. That counted somehow. 3 eggs. Okay, now let's see if I can do it. You can definitely do it on that on the largest platform. Let me see. Is it? It's possible on the smallest one, but I don't think it's possible on these ones. Let's line ourselves up. we are, and doing this is basically bringing up basically bringing up the biggest pyramid we can access. The amusingly named King Sandy Butt's tomb. I mean, it's always sandy on holiday in the desert. Not quite. Round. There we are, we fought the camera angle and we have now gained access to it. There were lots and lots of myths about the mummy's curse and things like that. It is entirely possible that there were some diseases lurking around, but even in real life, all the deaths associated with the opening of Tutankhamun's tomb kind of didn't happen. At least not the way everyone thinks they did. They weren't necessarily connected to opening the tomb. A lot of people actually wound up dying quite a bit later on. And some of them actually did have causes that were... There was correlation, as in there was a death around the time the tomb was opened, but there was not causation. There are logical arguments for it. So we also don't need the witch switch, but I'll show you where it is so that we can get all the information. So, oh yeah, we have a fantastic grave robber trap. We have to get through a maze. Wait a minute, so hang on. So you can see that they're there when they're in head, but when I zoom out, it disappears. Weird. Probably to make it a bit of a surprise. So we are now locked in the tomb. Prepare to run and prepare to make our way through the maze. It's a dead end. The music gets increasingly more frantic. Now this gives me the opportunity to test something. Yeah, it doesn't give me any honeycombs if I do that. There aren't any notes in the maze. But yeah, as you can see, pretty easy. But of course, I know what I'm doing. I've been adventuring for a fair while, so a lot of it is kind of stuck in my memory. Now we can make our way around here. And hit that. The music stops temporarily. Notice that there's nothing in the sarcophagus? Yeah, I did that pretty simple clip in order to wind up getting the jiggy. So this will take you a little bit of time to get, but we can still weave our way around back very easily. If time runs out, those spikes, not only do those spikes come down and stab you, and you die pretty much instantly, you get a very nice first-person view of the spikes coming down and crushing you. Bit nasty, to put it lightly. So, last Jinjo is in here. So there we go. Now we need to go back to the start in order to get our last jiggy set up. And we also need to go back here so that we can get our empty honeycombs too. So I'll make these two slightly longer episodes. The last few levels should be pretty long. Rusty Bucket Bay is probably going to be very long. I'm surprised this one has gone as smoothly as it has. So, we need to fly through a spiked cactus. There are only 2 of those honeycomb switches in the game. The other one appears in the infamous Rusty Bucket Bay. So, we have to fly through rings, but this one's spiky. It's a very unique hexagonal cactus with eyes. Whoop. Well, I got it, and I hurt myself. Now, it's pretty neat to note, you know how I was talking about the way the levels are laid out so you don't get lost very easily? Gobi's Valley is a really good example of that. You've got that central pyramid. Nice shot! So yes, you have to slam Gobi in the back. He'll complain that he needs to keep his water for himself. And there we go, we get our last Jiggy. It's interesting to note that under normal circumstances, I believe you can actually climb up Trunker. But when he grows tall, you can't actually climb up him. But it's interesting that his model just stretches like that. There we are, that's all our Jiggies. So, we still have to go and bully Gobi one more time. But yeah, so you can see the way this level is designed. It's got all its little offshoots coming from that central pyramid area. So and you've got the Sphinx nearby, so you've always got big points of reference. You can always look at something and go, okay, I can see that pyramid in the center. I can see the step pyramid is here. I can see the pyramid with the bird statue on it is here. I can get my bearings. Dare I say, I mean, that's a slightly bad pun, but honestly, it's a very nice example of level design. So, right up here, our last 5 notes, and Gobi. Hooray, I get my cameo role now that you've learned all the moves. Gobi doesn't say anything to us. We have to ground pound Gobi again, and there it is. There it is.
Ah, that's it. I'm leaving this desert to find some peace and quiet.
I can't blame you, dude. We did kind of bully him out of that. Can I... Well, I got my health filled up because I hit the sand before I got the health refilled. Not too bad. But yeah, we've had a couple of longer episodes. Let me check the times. Half an hour, not too shabby. Bit over half an hour. Problem is, I'd sort of be... Bubble Globe Swamp I blitzed through. Planker's Cavern was a bit faster this time round. Nice. Everything's gone pretty well. And we are done with things for now. Well, we'll get away from the superheated sand. And we've got to progress through a note door in the next room. The 450 note door is finally ours to open. So we'll make our way there. I'll set things up and we will proceed in the next one. So yes, you see, no Jiggy because it's actually a very easy clip. Saves us a bit of time if we're speed running. Well, we'll get in front of that 450 note door and then we can wrap it up. Because we'll be proceeding to the next area and whatever it hides. Thank you very much for joining me. Till next time, this is Red 2, doing a little dance and then returning to base.